Doug Ford tortures voter to free up hospital bed. I know that sounds like clickbait, but stick with me. The reality is actually much worse. This is Roger Foley, and not only does Ontario Premier Doug Ford want him dead, the whole government wants him dead. The Ministry of Health, the bureaucracy, and even the courts. And it's been going on for years. The previous Liberal Premier wanted him dead too. I'll start in happy times, and the story will get nastier as we go. I met Roger Foley over 20 years ago at a comedy club in Ottawa. He developed a comedic character called the Brute Man, a crime-fighting superhero, usually dressed with a cape and wrestling tights, kind of a cross between Superman and Macho Man Randy Savage. Roger had formed a troupe of improv actors with his fellow Carleton University students, shown here on breakfast television. And he organized comedy shows, trying to raise money for Children's Hospital and cancer research. The shows would have sketch comedy featuring the Brute Man character, improv games, a magician, and Roger asked me to do stand-up routine to add some variety in a couple of his shows. I was much older. I'd already taken early retirement, disillusioned with the rat race. So it was refreshing to hang out with Roger's young friends, so full of energy and life and dreams. After these shows, we lost touch. I didn't know Roger moved to Toronto, where he had a big job at the Royal Bank of Canada, dealing with e-business. He also had Spinocerebellar Ataxia type 14, a degenerative disease that would cripple him so badly that he needed regular home care to help him with basic tasks. By 2009, he couldn't work anymore, so he moved to London, Ontario, where rents are much cheaper than Toronto, and he had equipment installed so he could be hoisted out of bed. Canada has universal health care, so Roger's home care was funded by the Ontario government. But care should be put in air quotes, as some of the home care workers were heartless incompetents. Some would drag him across the floor or bump him into things when moving him. One gave him the wrong medications, nearly killing him. Falling asleep on the job was another issue, as Roger explains.
To give an example, I get a worker to help me get into the tub. So I'm washing myself in the tub and I'm ready for help to get help transferring out of the tub, and I call and I don't get an answer. I crawl out of the tub and everything is slippery and I don't have full control of my limbs. And so I'm crawling, and as I'm crawling down my hallway, I hear and he stretched out on one of my chairs in a deep sleep. And I'm like, what do I do here?
One problem is that the government farms out the home care to private agencies that make profits no matter how bad their employees are.
But I reported to the agency, and then he confessed, and the agency, they really didn't care.
Another time, a worker left the stove on and fell asleep, resulting in a kitchen fire. But in the final home care horror, a worker botched Roger's food, and he ended up in the hospital with food poisoning. Roger recovered, but since the home care people were so bad, doctors wouldn't release him. It was too unsafe for him to go home. He'd become a prisoner of the system. But it gets worse. It's 2016. Justin Trudeau had a majority and advanced his suicide agenda, which in Canada is known as MAiD, medical assistance in dying. And now the torture begins, starting with psychological torture. Hospital staff started offering Roger euthanasia. It must be terrifying, knowing that the people you depend on for your care think your lethal injection might be a good thing.
With me, it's completely traumatized me. They have an ableist mindset, and they look at persons with disabilities and see us as just better off dead and a waste of resources.
Now, not all home care workers are negligent. If Roger could choose some of the good people that worked for him over the years and reject the slackers and sociopaths, he could safely return home. But the authorities insisted on keeping control. So in 2018, Roger filed a lawsuit to try to win that right. Lawsuits usually go through a mediation, where both sides might find an agreement without going to court. If the government gave Roger his way, they would have to pay for his home care workers, but that's actually much cheaper than caring for Roger in the hospital. And that had been done before for other patients. All you need is a smart manager who's willing to sign off on it. It's win-win. Of course, you know from the thumbnail that never happened. And there's worse torture coming. Doug Ford became premier in 2018, and over the next 6 years could have settled with Roger at any time, giving him the home care help of his choosing and saving tax dollars on hospital care. But the government's priority was to crush a citizen. They knew Roger hadn't worked since 2009 and obviously couldn't afford a top lawyer. While the government has an infinite budget for lawyers who can make all kinds of motions and complications to drag things out and increase Roger's costs. And if by some miracle the court awarded Roger $1 million, nobody would ever get fired for the mistake of not settling the case more cheaply. And Roger's lawsuit looked a little bit like a do-it-yourself throw-in-the-kitchen sink affair, dealing with the home care situation, the annoying assisted suicide offers, and overall bad service in the hospital. For example, when they starved and dehydrated him for 20 days because nobody cranked his harness into the upright position so that he could eat without choking. And remember, he had the necessary cranking harness at home. So years passed. Roger became a bit of an advocate for the disabled, testifying to the Canadian House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Rights in 2020, and a similar statement he made was read in the United Kingdom Parliament during a euthanasia debate. But that probably just ticked off the government even more. The hospital's next pressure tactic was to threaten to throw Roger out on the street unless he reimbursed the hospital the cost for his keep, $1,500 to $1,800 a day. Or, of course, accept assisted suicide. Look at all the money you'll save. The next horror story is that Roger lost his court case. As Canadian lawyer Mag explains, his kitchen sink lawsuit named multiple defendants, and in December 2023, the court dismissed his case against the federal and provincial government. However, Foley was granted leave to amend certain claims against the remaining defendants. So after 6 years, the judge is saying that Roger has a case against some of the defendants, but first he would have to reimburse the government for about $100,000 of their lawyer fees by August 2024. Roger could only raise $19,000, and he had a lack of evidence supporting his inability to pay. Imagine that. A guy who hasn't worked in 15 years needs to prove his poverty. If he'd had a rich family, they would have paid the home care expenses themselves to keep Roger out of the hospital all those years. And these numbers mean that the government paid lawyers $100,000 of taxpayer money, plus the cost of running the courthouse, just to deprive Roger of the ability to choose home care workers that wouldn't fall asleep on the job, poison him, or burn his kitchen. The judgment also gives a free pass to other defendants, like the Victoria Hospital in London. They repeatedly offered Roger assisted suicide from 2016 to 2021, when the law only allowed the procedure for people with terminal illnesses. Roger wasn't terminal, and only in cases when the patient requested it, which Roger didn't. Dodging the lawsuit only emboldened the hospital. Roger reported that starting in April 2025, hospital staff offered him suicide nearly every night. Roger recorded many of the conversations. Staff also woke him up needlessly on many occasions, like fake wellness checks. Sleep deprivation is widely recognized as a torture technique. On May 4th, an employee woke Roger up at 3:45 a.m. for this harassing exchange.
Hey, Raj. Raj.
What?
There's just a quick question.
Don't ask me if it has anything to do with suicide.
Okay. So
Because the police are gonna get involved soon. I reported this to a lawyer.
Yeah.
The hospital is not to ask me ever about suicide.
Okay, but no, I'm just, because this is like this is part of our scope, just making sure we just
Do not ask.
Okay,
Do not ask.
Okay, Raj. All right. I just want to make sure you're doing okay. The genuineness. I just want to make sure you're okay.
How many times do I have to tell the hospital not to?
All right, there we go. Just out of genuineness, Roger.
No, it's not out of genuineness.
No,
because
for
a
me.
lot of nurses do not ask. And it's not for you.
Roger.
For 9 years, hospital staff has known that one of the nasty symptoms of Roger's condition is extreme light sensitivity. Bright light causes intense pain and temporary blindness. So on May the 7th, the hospital replaced the low-intensity amber lighting in Roger's room with high-intensity halogen and fluorescent lights, knowing they torture him every time they flick the switch. One day a nurse gave him dark sunglasses. The next day the glasses were gone and the lights were full blast again. So now Roger uses his own ski goggles with 3 separate visors taped together to filter enough light. But they're heavy, and his neck hurts if he wears them for more than 10 minutes at a time. But it gets worse! Since it hurt Roger's eyes so much when they'd come in to feed him, and it wouldn't be safe to feed him without bright lights, the hospital decided not to feed him. Incredible! So for weeks they fed him only intravenously. And IV feeding doesn't work long term, as it damages the veins. Roger had big track marks and collapsed veins, and soon the hospital wasn't feeding him at all, violating several human rights treaties. So while Roger's being harassed into killing himself, blinded, and now starved to death, he desperately needs an ally. And that's when the local newspaper publishes this hit piece, "Not Budging," calling him an extreme example of a bed blocker. The story was reprinted in the National Post under the headline, "Man Refuses to Leave Hospital." And in the Daily Press, "Man has been in hospital for 9 years because of a feud over home care." Jennifer Beeman criticizes Roger for trying to hire specific home care workers of his own choosing, almost as if they were his employees, even though the government of Ontario is actually advertising that exact option.
Available province-wide, the Direct Funding Program enables adults with physical disabilities to receive monthly funds to hire the attendants of their choice. Take charge of your life. Hire your own attendants. Live your life with more choice, control, and independence. For more information about the Direct Funding Program, please visit dfontario.ca/df.
And the article makes no mention of the recent suicide barrage, lighting torture, or starvation. Meanwhile, Roger's brother in Ottawa pleaded with hospital staff to fix Roger's lights and start feeding him to save his life. Instead of helping, the Dallas Express learned, hospital officials told his brother to stop contacting them. The Euthanasia Prevention Coalition intervened for Roger, putting pressure on the hospital, which only agreed to resume feeding Roger after they'd already starved him for 5 weeks over the summer. But when Alex Schadenberg visited Roger on August the 6th, he learned the hospital was quietly starving Roger again. IV fluids only, no nutrition. Schadenberg protested, and the hospital policy flipped a few more times in August, alternating between periods when they were feeding Roger and periods when they weren't. For example, Roger reported on August 16th that they weren't feeding him. A Campaign Life reporter posted on YouTube August 25th that Roger continued to get nearly daily offers of lethal injections.
Not once, not twice, repeatedly.
Incredibly, Roger survived to see his 50th birthday in September. And he just started a Life Funder, like a medical GoFundMe, where the nonprofit Life Care Network will send support workers directly into the hospital to provide him with the essentials the hospital refuses to: food, oral medications, hydration, toileting, and basic hygiene support. I'll leave links in the description if you want to contribute. Roger also has a Give Send Go for his legal challenges. Roger still isn't home, and the government still wants him dead. And you can also help Roger for free. Public opinion will be important long-term for Roger and others in similar positions. Share this video to spread the word about what's going on. Likes and subscribes help to feed the algorithms. Comments are even better, as a robust comment section shows YouTube that people are passionate about the topic. Tell the politicians what you think. Contact Health Minister Sylvia Jones, contact Doug Ford, or troll him on X at Ford Nation. Ask opposition leader Marit Stiles to raise a stink. I used clips from Amanda Ackman's video, A Passion to Live. I'll leave links in the description and pinned comments so you can watch it all. It's less than 5 minutes, but very powerful. And the last word goes to Roger.
With your will, you can bet now